Okay, the hearings panel report to the council on the QE2 master plan. Chair of the hearings panel, Glenn Livingstone, have you got some introductory comments that you'd like to make?
Okay, kia ora. Thank you, Andrew. And I wonder whether Lizzie may wish to just be here just for any questions. So if I begin with...
Queen.
Oh, right.
Yeah, that would have been a point of order.
Okay, in my view, the process for this has been very good in terms of the community engagement from the beginning. Lizzie integrally involved all along, Tessa, other staff members as well. There was an open day on site with the newly completed Tai Ora QE2 in the background, so I think that really helped set the scene. You'll see through the hearings process, and thank you to David, Anne and Yanni, we had 4 meetings and 1 site visit. You can see the recommendations there. We have altered a few, one around the toilet change estimated cost. We've also sought to seek opportunities for partnerships and commercial funders. The view there being that potential private investment can add to public investment to really maximise the site. The southwest corner, that's received some profile there, but you'll see in the supporting documents that further consultation may not necessarily be required, as this will be picked up through both resource consent and leasing processes. The overall plan layers, I know it's a big agenda today, but hopefully you've had the chance to get to this. The overall plan layers are on page 356. The funded and unfunded parts, page 361, and the latest after the changes with the hearings panel process, page 369. So this is a beautiful, important park, regarded as kind of the Hagley Park of the East. It has some existing assets by way, as I said, of the aquatic centre, the Christchurch School of Gymnastics, which is being rebuilt, the 2 new high schools, and the new CSG. I've just said that being rebuilt, some ancillary buildings as well. But we want an integrated, joined up plan. The Mayor asked us to push this as fast as we could, and so we've done that. This has been through the board by way of the draft, and we've landed at this place. So it's a really exciting point to get to today. And as I said before, Lizzie is here to field any questions that you may have.
Great, thank you. So that's a great continuing to the questions that we may have for Lizzie. Pauline.
Yeah, we've got just the native forest planting.
Yes.
Are you intending to apply to the billion trees, the MPI fund for those?
Yeah, we identified through the hearing panel process that there are a number of opportunities when it comes to planting, particularly that eastern section of the park, both in terms of financial and also community input.
Yep.
So we've got a number of communities, and particularly the schools that are on site, they want to be a part of that.
Fantastic, good.
Any further questions? Vicky.
Sorry to be dense on this. So the money that was created from the sale of the schools goes back into this master plan?
Correct.
How much was that?
So the total fund was the 4.6 for the land sale. There's been a council resolution prior which has moved a part of that funding, and what we have remaining is 3.4, which has been allocated and consulted on and identified for the implementation.
Within this list
Within
of
this
things.
plan.
So the total of the total cost that's unfunded, 8.719 million.
Correct.
So what's the status of that?
So in terms of putting forward a plan in its entirety, the key was to ensure that we had a master plan that looked at the whole site, that was heavily integrated with circulation, spaces and activities. So when looking at the funded versus unfunded, we were really looking at what are the areas that we need to look at and progress now to really maximise this park going forward. The remaining items is looking at potential bids through the LTP, and looking at other external funding sources. And the hearings panel did alter the recommendation to include that staff look at those external funding options as well.
So but in terms of what we're passing now, none of this is being funded by way of resolution.
So today, the 3.4 is being funded. So
Yes, no, I understand that.
Yeah.
The unfunded 5 point something.
correct.
Yeah, so it's just you go and bid for it.
Correct.
But we've done the master plan for the entire area such that as funding becomes available from whatever source,
Yep.
we know what's going in. Okay,
Subject to
brilliant. Thank
LTP
you.
annual planning
Thanks,
cycle.
Rosie.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't have to be
Yeah.
us.
Thank you. Sarah and then Yanni.
Hi,
Sarah.
thanks so much for that. With number 4, it says to delegate future decision making for unfunded items within the master plan to the board, which is fine because it's their local project kind of stuff. And it says subject to funding becoming available, but they don't get to make any decisions before there's any funding on budget, do they?
No, so we
they
will
could-
require budget
Yeah.
to then progress those.
Yeah, it's just that whole expectations raising kind of thing. But 3A on the changing a toilet facility, the hearings panel's asked officers to actively seek efficiencies, some cost efficiencies clearly. Is the work on A2A to D reliant on finding savings on the toilet facilities? So if staff came back and said, hey, actually, to build something that's fit for purpose for the community, we do need to spend $1 million or whatever it was, what gets dropped, and did the panel consider that?
So in terms of the funded items, the placeholder for the $1 million for the toilet facilities has been taken into account.
Okay.
The resolution has, so the proposed resolution asks staff to go away and really explore those options and come back and present those to council. Should there be a savings within that, then we can look at some of those unfunded options and present that at the same time.
Yeah.
But it doesn't exclude what we've identified within the funded options.
Yeah. And did the panel discuss at all, like if there was, if they went for a slightly smaller or cheaper version of the sort of toilets and changing shed, and they built it and it wasn't good enough, was the plan just to come back for more money? Or, because I know there's, we've got calls on money for that area, for just down the road that really needs it, so.
So where the staff talked through with the hearings panel quite in length around toilet change. The direct link through to the sports network plan was discussed as well in terms of the purpose of QE2 Park. So QE2 Park has been identified within the proposed sports network plan as an area for flexible bookable spaces with a certain number of sporting fields within that. So in terms of looking at, and we discussed the options around putting a smaller facility at that location as well as the larger facility, it's deemed in terms of to maximise the use of all the fields that are proposed within the master plan, which 3 of them exist already,
Yeah.
that particular size was required.
Okay, but so the $1 million is set there, so that's not a problem, and if it's not all needed, that could go into other stuff at the
That
park?
could go into
Okay.
unfunded items.
Thank you. Yanni.
I know we've been told it's sort of out of scope, but just the former School of Gymnastics building, my understanding there is a process underway to get some resolution around future use.
Correct, that's been led by the property team, so it's out of scope of what we were looking at in terms of the master plan for QE2 Park, but there is a process that's being led by property to go through that and look at those options.
And the local community board. I just wonder if we could have a noting provision that we just ask staff to progress that with urgency.
Well, that's not a noting provision, it's a request, and if it's out of scope, then it's out of scope.
We have had a conversation over how to do this procedurally, so whether that is possible, I don't know.
Yeah. Let's just keep it simple and keep it.
I think we'll just have to find another avenue, Yanni.
Okay, but
Yeah,
I mean, you say it's
we
out
can
of
get an
scope.
update. We can definitely get an update on
We
it.
spent the money on that on the new building for school gymnastics.
Yeah, no, what I don't want is a debate when we're not in debate about something that's already been determined to be out of scope for the matter that we will be debating when we get there.
Happy to
If we
move it.
want some information on a different process, on a process around a different subject than we're debating now, I'm sure we can get that. But asking questions of a staff member at the table who's got no responsibility for the out of scope thing that we're talking about is not the way to go. So let's get some information if we want
need
some
to separate
information, but
out.
the community board may well have a view on how they're intending progressing this
There's a
anyway.
hearing panel report and there's a master plan, right? If it's not in scope for the master plan, it doesn't mean it's out of scope for the hearing panel to recommend things to council.
I'm not seeing a hearings panel recommendation on that subject.
I think we keep the main thing,
That's fine.
and we staff
Not
such
as
as Bruce
emotional, find
already
another way to bring it up.
Yeah.
It's our money that we're wasting,
Yeah,
so,
we
you know.
can attend to that.
Yeah.
Find another way to do it.
All right. So that's, yeah, I mean, if there's information that needs to be provided, let's get the information provided from the staff that are working on it. That can be done by way of a memo, and if it requires further action, then we can take some further action, if indeed it does. Okay, so questions on the paper that's in front of us. Anne?
Thanks, Lizzie. You're right. We spent an awful lot of time talking about toilets and changing rooms and the money that was obviously involved with that. And you convinced me that there was a need for future proofing, really. Can you tell us a wee bit more about that and why you felt that it was important to invest that much money into a toilet and change block?
So in terms of the toilet and change, you've got existing facilities within QE2 Park. So you've got 2 existing senior sports fields as well as sports field which we've identified within the master plan to be not only a sports field but also have multi-purpose and to be used as an event space, in addition to a multi-sports field of different surface. So in terms of the toilet change, to really maximise and to increase participation within the park and within the east, by limiting the building that you put in there for the toilet change, you're limiting the activities that you can deliver on that park. So you're also talking around the potential to bringing events into, local events into the park as well, and having those services there and doing them up front gives you that vehicle to then use the park in a multitude of means, rather than doing it in bits and adding onto it, which then has impacts in terms of displacement and additional costs for.
Thank you. Any further questions? All right, so Glenn, I'm assuming that you'll be happy to move this.
I wish to move, and
Is there a seconder? Dave? Yep. And then, Glenn, are you...
yeah, as I
wanting
move,
something
there's just something that's coming up. There won't be any sound with it. I think you'll recognise. So just in speaking to this, he rangi ata hua tēnei, korihi te manu, te kiri ma te ata, no te rāwhiti, te putanga, mai o te rā, ka au, ka awatea, tihei Māori ora. Arguably one of New Zealand's finest sporting days when the sun shone, not only on New Zealand but Christchurch, and for the east of Christchurch. Dick Taylor himself describes that moment as his time in the sun. And that moment really, it still resounds and reverberates for many in the east of Christchurch at that place, QE2 Park. In local government circles, there's a maxim known as the legacy of events. And so going right back to the first peoples of the land, to later changes to the land, to now, there is a legacy which we wish to echo in this plan. We want it to be a place that reflects all those values as captured in the report, a place of fun. And my hope today is that you will agree to this. Together, when we join up this whole park and join up all these assets, both built and natural, you really have significant investment for that side of the city. So for anyone who says nothing is happening in the east, is factually wrong. A lot is happening in the east. There's a lot of private and public investment, especially in the east of Christchurch. And agreeing to this today, I think, will go a long way towards the social well-being recovery of the people out that way. I so move.
Thank you. Aaron.
Just want to really quickly say one thing, and that's to bring attention to the bag that Glenn hung over the front from 1974. That's what his 21st present come in, because he had it there in 74. Thanks.
And it's actually not showing too many signs of its age either. I was already at primary school in 1974. Yanni.
Yeah, I want to acknowledge the hearing panel and the staff and the community for the submissions around this process. It was really important that we got a master plan in place. Probably the tragedy for this particular site is the fact that the master plan didn't come before we'd made decisions on the built form. So you'll find that there was a lot of discussion at the hearing panel around the number of toilets and how accessible they were for each individual building, or things like the car parking and the sports fields being able to be used across the entire site as a community focus, rather than each individual facility having their own car parks, having their own sports fields, etc. But fundamentally, I think this is a good overall plan, although this is arguably what should have been done before the built structures went in place. The thing that I'm really looking forward to is through the hearing panel, we heard from a number of really amazing people that are just already doing stuff around things like ecology, biodiversity, plantings, etc., particularly working with some of the school children. And I think one of the things that we really need to focus on as a city is that places like this don't just have to be all done by city council. In fact, there's a number of groups of people, children, young people that want to be involved in this as we go forward, that can help us save money, because actually the goodwill and the volunteerism and the learning that they can bring to it is actually a lot more cost effective than us simply paying for everything to be done. So I really look forward to this project, the projects in this plan proceeding with extensive community involvement and engagement. I think that will be absolutely critical. I am concerned about the number of things in here, particularly the toilets, around the high cost, and I think we just need to keep looking at ensuring that we really are spending money wisely, and if there's community partnerships, then let's work those through. The only other point I wanted to make is that we did have the Youth Voices Canterbury and the Youth Council. They did do a collaborative youth review of this plan and a walkabout, and there are a number of things that they've raised that haven't been picked up, but hopefully can be picked up going forward. Just simple, small things that they bring to the table, which gives you a different perspective on this space. And I think it's really important that we pick up on some of those ideas. I am hopeful that we can, through the disability working group or committee or task force or whatever we're calling it, can actually look at some of the barriers around access. Probably my biggest concern is the extensive nature of the site means we need to really ensure that there's good, easy access and for a wide variety of people in all forms of transport. So shared paths, possibly not, but places where people can cycle, e-bike, e-scooter, run, jog, push prams, etc. So I look forward to this plan being implemented. Fundamentally, I think it is a good plan, and there's been a lot of work going into it.
Thank you. Vicky and then David.
Just
Vicky.
one tiny little technical thing, just to pick up on something Yanni mentioned that I agree with totally, and that is in section 4, where it says subject to funding becoming available in the 2021 long-term plan. Could we add or any other funding source? If we look at the amazing work that's being done at Ngāpunawai in raising money from other organisations, I think we could look to a whole range of funding sources so that it's not all coming, as Yanni says, from the City Council. So I just wonder, with the mover's permission, if we could add or any other funding source.
Well, any other.
Yeah, we could do a deep dive into the toilet to find this one.
Or any other funding source. Yep, so Glenn, you're comfortable with that?
Yes.
And David, you're comfortable with that as an addition? Yep, great. Thank you. David.
Thank you. Look, as a member of that hearings panel, I'm very pleased to see the outcomes that we have developed for this master plan, and it's another nice thing for the eastern suburbs, and I promise not to be pushing too many projects too hard in the short to medium term future. So very gratifying to see this facility starting to realise its full potential again. I do support Glenn and others' comments around finding efficiencies with the toilet and changing facilities. To me, it just seems totally incongruous that the amount of money that we potentially may spend on this, you could build a couple of houses or more. So really keen to look at those efficiencies. I also like to highlight, I think, point 5 in the resolution, opportunities for partnership with external operations and funders to look at opportunities at QEII. There are a number, and if we can, and I think that sort of supports Vicky's amendment just a moment ago, there are a number of opportunities where people, organisations can bring funding, both funding and operations that will enhance the master plan as it's proposed. So I'm very supportive of what we've done to date, and totally supportive of the resolution we've got before us today. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Glenn, did you have any further comments?
Well, just a couple of brief ones. I think really appreciate and thank you, Vicky, for that addition for any other funding source. I think specifically here there is the opportunity for private investment to help maximise the public, or to realise the greater potential of the park itself. So fully supportive of that.
Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.